manager pointed at the register. She said 2 words, "Stay here," in the middle of the worst morning rush I'd ever seen. Then she walked away. Let me back up. The problem wasn't the order. It was the smile she gave me when she said it. Act 1. The detail. It all started with $20. $20 in an envelope taped to the back of the petty cash box under the main register. I only found it because I dropped a roll of quarters and had to fish it out from behind the tangle of receipt printer cables. The envelope was plain white, with Chloe written on it in her sharp, aggressive handwriting. Inside, a crisp $20 bill. Strange. Maybe she was saving it for lunch. I taped it back where I found it and tried to forget about it. 2 days later, my coworker Jen was closing with me. She was counting her tips, frowning at the sad little pile of ones. Chloe, our manager, had this system. We all pooled tips, and she distributed them at the end of the week. Except everyone felt like their take-home was always lighter than it should have been, but proving it, impossible. It was just a quiet complaint whispered over the hiss of the steam wand. That night, Jen sighed and said Chloe told her the cafe was short on milk and she needed to run to the grocery store. Chloe handed her a 20 from her own wallet and told her to bring back the receipt. Jen thought it was odd. Chloe was obsessed with using the official company card for every single purchase. She had drilled into us that using personal money, even for emergencies, was a fireable offense. It messed up the inventory tracking. Her words. I didn't think much of it until I was doing my final wipe down. On a whim, I checked behind the petty cash box. The white envelope with Chloe on it? Gone. It was a tiny thing, a coincidence. She needed $20 for the milk run. She grabbed the 20 she had stashed. Except, why stash it there? And why make a huge deal about company card rules and then break them herself over a gallon of 2%? It felt like a loose thread, and for reasons I couldn't explain, I had to pull it. Act 2. Pulling. I started watching her. Not obsessively. Just paying attention. And the more I paid attention, the weirder things got. Chloe was a ghost. She'd be on the schedule for a full 8-hour shift, but she'd only be physically in the cafe for maybe 3 of them. She'd arrive, make a big show of checking inventory on her tablet, then announce she had a conference call or inventory check in the back office. Then she'd vanish. One Tuesday, we were slammed. Line out the door. Jen was on the espresso machine, looking like she was about to snap. I was supposed to be on register, but I was also pouring drip coffee and trying to restock the pastry case. I glanced toward the back office. The door was shut. I told Jen I'd be right back and knocked. No answer. I knocked again, louder. Nothing but the muffled thumping of our own cafe's playlist. I nudged the door open. The office was empty. Her jacket was still on the chair. Her half-finished latte was on the desk. But Chloe was gone. The back door, the one leading to the alley, was slightly ajar. Standing there, listening to the chaos out front and the dead silence in that empty room, I felt a knot of dread tighten in my stomach. She had clocked in. Her shift was active in the system. But she wasn't here. This wasn't a conference call. When she came back 45 minutes later, through the front door, holding a shopping bag from a boutique down the street, she didn't even try to hide it. She just breezed past the line of waiting customers, saw the look on my face, and her own face hardened. She pulled me aside. Her voice was a low hiss for my ears only. She told me my job was the register. Just the register. Not espresso. Not pastries. And definitely not management. She told me to stay in my lane. Later that day, I was taking out the trash. In the bin, right by the back door, I saw it. A crumpled receipt from the boutique she'd been to. But underneath it was something else. A small, square receipt from a parking garage 2 blocks away. The timestamp showed she had paid for parking right around the time she supposedly had her conference call. She was driving here, parking, clocking in, leaving for a few hours, then coming back before her shift ended. She was getting paid for hours she wasn't working. It was organized. Deliberate. That night, I texted Jen. Just a simple question, but my thumb hovered over the screen, wondering if I was crossing a line. I hit send. Hey, have you ever noticed Chloe disappears a lot? Her reply came back instantly. Dude, all the time. Act 3. Unraveling. The next step was the schedule. The schedule was a sacred text in our cafe, posted on a corkboard in the back office. Chloe made a huge deal about it. No unauthorized changes. Everything in pen. Every shift signed off. So I started taking pictures of it with my phone at the end of each week. What I found was subtle. A smudge here. A name whited out and rewritten there. An 8-hour shift that suddenly had a 7 written over the 8, but only on the official timesheet she submitted, not the one on the wall. They were tiny, fractional changes. An hour here. 45 minutes there. But she wasn't just stealing time from her own shifts. She was shaving it off hours. I showed Jen the pictures. We sat in her car after a closing shift, the dashboard lights illuminating our faces. I laid out the photo of last week's schedule next to a screenshot of my official pay stub. My pay stub was short by 2.5 hours. Jen pulled up hers. She was short by 4. We went back a month. Then 2. It was a pattern. A few dollars from me, a few from Jen. A few from the other baristas. We calculated it. Over the last 6 months, she had skimmed almost $1,000 in wages, just between the two of us. And the tips. We realized the milk runs were her excuse. She'd send someone out with cash, get the receipt, and then what? We figured she was pocketing the 20 and using the company card anyway, then shredding the card receipt. But that felt too complicated. The answer had to be simpler. That's when Jen remembered something. The customer had tried to add a big tip on a credit card purchase last week, and the machine had declined it. Chloe had swooped in, looking flustered, and told the customer the tip function was down and that they should just use the cash jar. The customer shrugged and threw a 5 in the jar. At the time, it seemed like a simple tech glitch. Now, it felt like part of the plan. I went into the point of sale system settings. It took me a while, but I found it. Buried deep in the administrative panel, a setting I'd never seen before. Tip payout. It was set to direct deposit, and the routing and account number entered there. It wasn't the cafe's general account. I didn't recognize it, so I took a picture, just in case. Act 4. The picture. The next day, Chloe was in a mood. A truly foul mood. The district manager, a stern woman named Mrs. Albright, was rumored to be doing surprise visits in our area. Chloe was buzzing around the cafe like a trapped wasp, straightening things that were already straight, snapping at everyone for the smallest infraction. That's when she cornered me. She said my efficiency was disruptive. That when I moved off the register to help Jen on the bar, it confused the customers and broke the workflow. I just stared at her. The line was 12 people deep. Jen was making 3 drinks at once. The pastry case was completely empty. My register was silent. There was no one to ring up. I told her it made no sense, that I was trying to help. Her smile? Pure ice. She told me my job description was cashier. Then she leaned in close, her voice dropping to that venomous whisper. She told me, from now on, I was not to move from the 3-foot space behind the register. Unless a customer was standing directly in front of me, ready to pay, I was to do nothing. I was to stand there and wait. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command. And in that moment, looking at her smug, controlling face, everything clicked. The stolen time, the skimmed wages, the diverted tips, and that $20 bill. The night before, I had Googled the routing number from the tip system. It belonged to a small local credit union. The same credit union whose ATN was inside the grocery store where Chloe always sent us for milk runs. She wasn't using the 20 for milk. She was giving it to us, sending us out, so she had an excuse to pull $20 from the cash tips jar. She needed a reason for the till to be $20 higher at the end of the day, a way to balance the books after she'd already pocketed 20 in cash. She was laundering our tips. The cash tips went into her pocket, replaced by the 20 she took from the till, while the credit card tips went into her secret account. The envelope with Chloe on it wasn't her lunch money. It was the seed money for her entire scheme. I looked at Chloe, standing there with her arms crossed, expecting me to argue, and I just nodded. I told her, okay, I understand. I didn't storm off. I didn't text Jen or call Mrs. Albright. I simply walked back to my register. And I stood there. The line grew longer. A customer yelled that the sugar station was empty. I didn't move. Jen shot me a panicked look from the bar, where tickets were now spilling onto the floor. I just gave a tiny shake of my head. The pastry case remained a wasteland of crumbs. People started walking out. The cafe, once a model of bustling efficiency, was descending into absolute chaos, and I was its smiling, silent cause. The whole cafe was watching me, a useless statue 3 feet from a line of angry people. Chloe watched from across the room, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. This wasn't the reaction she expected. She wanted a fight. She wanted insubordination. I was giving her perfect malicious compliance. Then, the bell above the door jingled. In walked a sharply dressed woman in her 50s, Mrs. Albright, the district manager. Her eyes scanned the scene. The angry customers, the empty pastry case, the mountain of dirty cups, Jen, drowning behind the bar, and me. Standing perfectly still at an empty register, hands folded behind my back with a calm, serene smile on my face. Her gaze locked onto mine. Then it shifted to Chloe, whose face had gone a ghostly white. Act 5. Now, Mrs. Albright walked straight to me. She ignored Chloe completely. Her voice was low and calm, but it cut through the noise of the cafe. What exactly, she asked, is going on here? I didn't break eye contact. I told her, just as calmly, I'm following my manager's direct orders. I explained that I had been instructed not to leave the immediate vicinity of the register for any reason, because my attempts to help were disruptive to the workflow. I said it without anger, without sarcasm. Just flat, factual reporting. Mrs. Albright turned her head slowly, deliberately to look at Chloe. The silence in the cafe was absolute. Every customer, every employee was frozen, watching this unfold. Chloe started stammering. She's exaggerating. It was a misunderstand. Mrs. Albright cut her off with a single raised hand. Then she turned to Jen, who just shook her head, her face a mask of exhaustion and despair. That was all the answer she needed. Chloe, Mrs. Albright said, her voice dangerously quiet. My office. Now. Chloe's face crumpled, the last of her authority gone. She turned and walked toward the back, with Mrs. Albright following like a hawk. As the office door clicked shut, Mrs. Albright paused and looked over her shoulder at me. She just gave me a single slow nod. An acknowledgement. Understanding. I have the pictures of the schedule. I have the screenshot of the tip payout account. I have Jen as a witness. I know exactly how Chloe did it, from the $20 envelope to the laundered tips to the stolen hours. Mrs. Albright is starting a full audit of the store's finances tomorrow. Chloe is on administrative leave. I have an email sitting in my drafts folder addressed to Mrs. Albright. The subject line is additional information. All the evidence is attached. I stand in the now quiet cafe after closing. The mess has been cleaned up. The registers are silent. All I have to do is press send. And for the first time in months, my hands aren't shaking. Cashier confined. A cafe's revenge.